I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into another episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just wanted to announce, major spoiler alert, we are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 2 of season 3 of The Mandalorian. So if you haven't watched that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disney Plus, check that out, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
Break down everything from episode 2 of season 3 of The Mandalorian. It's Jon Jon Rico.
Hello.
Hello there.
How we doing?
Hello there.
There we go. Awesome. Doing great. I mean, Mandalorian has been awesome. We've got, Last of Us, Mandalorian. We've got Pedro Pascal all the time.
Yes, awesome. A lot of content right now. It's really great.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was another, great episode in the beginning of season 3 of The Mandalorian. I'm super excited. Like, it feels like we've already covered so much ground in these first 2 episodes already. Like, I'm excited. I have no idea what's going to happen the rest of the season now. But just like quick, I mean, obviously I have to say, pop culture reference. I'm going to throw that out there, and then this is the first time so we had, and this is, I mean, no surprise if you've watched the episode. If you haven't, I gave the spoiler alert already. You should not be continuing if you haven't watched. But we get to see Mandalore, and Mando and Grogu make it to Mandalore, and the only thing I could remember, because we were seeing like the ruins of one of the cities and stuff like that as they're exploring and they're trying to find the living waters and everything like that, is do you remember the pilot for Futurama? I don't know if you're a Futurama fan or not, but I am.
I've watched the show maybe one time, but I don't remember.
Oh,
I only remember that horrible dog episode that made me cry at the end.
Oh yeah, if that's the snapshot of Futurama, I totally understand why you never went back. There are plenty of episodes that are not as sad as that, and
actually, I consider it one of their best episodes, but it's just like, that's a heartbreaker.
It's a phenomenal episode, but it's a phenomenal episode like The Last of Us are phenomenal, where it's tragically phenomenal type of thing. But there are plenty of good episodes, but the reference I'm thinking of is in the pilot, the opening episode, when...
Good Lord. What is this?
It's the decaying ruins of old New York.
And they finally get to the ruins of old New York. And it's basically, present day New York City. But that's what you see. You see like all of these ruins that, Fry is recognizing, because he went to sleep and then woke up in like an instant type of thing. But that's just what it kind of immediately reminded me of, was with Mando and Grogu kind of exploring the ruins of the city on Mandalore. And, there's not too many more parallels to it than that, but it was just like, it instantly made me think of that. And, it's a good pilot episode for Futurama. For reference, I think you should watch that. You're always giving me recommendations of things I should watch. I think you should watch that Futurama episode. But no, I mean, overall, I think the episode was great. It had, a lot of things that, just from the teasers that we got leading into this season, we got to see that. I mean, we got to see Grogu kicking some ass. Like we were kind of wondering from the trailer what that was going to be, like that creature getting thrown out of the cave type of thing. And now we know after this episode. But there was a lot that was from the trailer from this episode, and that's why I originally said I really don't know what's going to happen next in this season, because we got a lot of what had been in the trailers originally, in the teaser trailers and stuff like that for this season. But overall, I think great second episode for the season. And Rico, what were some of your instant reactions from episode 2?
Excellent episode. Yeah, like you were saying, like first of all, I love going back to Mandalore. as a Clone Wars fan, Rebels fan, like just kind of seeing that world not only in a live action situation, but also in the state that it's in now. Like you said, the ruins of basically of Mandalore. It for someone who is that goes back like to Clone Wars like me, and that it's a really cool thing to see, but it's also kind of devastating because you're like, dang, this place was thriving at one point. It was just a really cool civilization, part of the Star Wars world, and now you're literally just seeing it literally after the purge, uh, reduced to ruins. So that was really cool. We got some really cool creature designs with the Alamites and the kind of like droidy, half droid, half like kind of sentient alien thing that was
Yeah.
kidnapping Mando and got help being freed by Bo-Katan later on. But so there was some really cool stuff there. Grogu kind of had the most character development in this episode than he's probably had the entire show. Like he really served a purpose other than just like not being the cute sidekick that needs to be saved all the time. Just seeing some great moments between him and Din where they're flying into Mandalore.
It's Mandalore, the homeworld of our people.
There's like father-son moments and kind of teaching him the ways of being a Mandalorian. Like, a Mandalorian must know the stars and know their way around the stars, and kind of showing him the two moons of Mandalore, where one where Bo-Katan lives and then one where he grew up. So just kind of seeing how the whole Mandalore system is not just the planet Mandalore; it's all the circle, the surrounding areas around it, right? The moons. So you're just adding all this extra backstory and history to for the more casual fan, the Mandalorian fan that doesn't know much about the Mandalorian culture. And I feel like this season really, like we're watching the show called The Mandalorian, and I feel like now it's the most Mandalore focused part of the show yet, and we're really seeing the true kind of like the principles and the ideologies of the Mandalorians really come into focus more of this season. I think it's a lot of fun.
We got the famous line that I've been waiting to hear in context since the very first teaser trailer for the season. You didn't think your father was the only Mandalorian, did you? Got that from Bo-Katan.
The context of how those two were together in that scene makes a lot more sense with this episode now. And like you were saying with the trailer, they usually do a pretty good job of kind of putting stuff from the first couple episodes in the trailer to leave a suspicion of the rest of the season going in there later on. So I'm sure we'll get like a mid-season trailer that shows a lot more footage, like we usually do midway through the season. But yeah, everything that they set up in the trailers is pretty much we've seen now to a certain degree, and there's still some stuff we haven't seen. But it's setting the stage for a pretty fun season.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see where we go with this season in general. I mean, I've heard rumors that there's like a bigger threat type of thing that is looming that we're going to, it's going to surface at some point soon. So that'd be really cool, especially if it's like a mid-season thing, and then we have like the back half of the season. But anyway, you want to get to some big takeaways?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna kick us off because I have a little bit to do with with one of your takeaways, but I don't think I'm gonna get into too much the same like context that you're gonna get into. So my biggest takeaway was really just I thought it was really cool that we got to see both Mando and Bo-Katan use the Darksaber. We got to see them, separately use the Darksaber. And it really kind of shows, I guess, when you are, working with and working against. And we were talking about this before we even started recording, where I was telling you, we've heard now that there is a long time period between the seasons in Mandalorian.
2 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. And during season 2, we had Mando trying to train with the Darksaber. So I was telling you before we even started recording, I was like, I would have expected him to be able to kind of lift it a little bit more and be a little bit more fluid with it at this point. He's had it for 2 years at this point, at least 2 years. And what you said to me, I think I absolutely agree with you. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh shit, you're right. He doesn't want it. And it's very obvious. So it's kind of it's working against him. It's him using something that he doesn't really want to have to use, type of thing. And then when we see Bo-Katan immediately pick it up when she's in that fight really quick, trying to free Mando later on in the episode, she's moving with it so fluidly. It's almost like Jedi with a lightsaber at that point, where she's able to kind of, it doesn't seem heavy at all for her. And it just kind of shows the contrast of the two people using it. And I thought it was a really cool thing to see that. I know it wasn't like a really big focus of the episode, but for me, that really did stand out a lot. But Rico, what were some of your big takeaways from this episode?
No, yeah, that was definitely something that stood out to me. And also talking about the way the wielder of the Darksaber kind of works is you have to have full focus in what you're doing in order to kind of properly wield it. And Din's focus is never properly in one place ever. Like whether it's right, well, as far as Mandalorian culture goes, he's kind of caught between these two ideologies that I've been saying the last couple of weeks. But that even more so, he doesn't have that confidence in himself as a true Mandalorian, especially now because he's on his way to redeem himself. He's been kicked out of his creed. So that plays a big factor, and he's never really been able to kind of consider himself the true wielder of the Darksaber. And Bo-Katan is literally the opposite of that. She knows exactly who she is as a Mandalorian, and she knows what that Darksaber means to not only just her family but to the culture itself. So when she holds it and she's kicking ass with it, like no problem. You could tell it's like that was someone who has experience with it in some form or another. And it just feels natural in her hand. Like that's what she wants. That's what her eyes are set on, and that's what is going to get her people back, right? So that's always going to be that little line of tension between the two, which I think is going to be always an interesting storyline to follow. But I also like that she's also not going to like be selfish about it. When she saves Mando, she gives it back to him. She puts it right back with his other weapons. Like, okay, I saved you with it, but I'm not going to take your your Darksaber. So that's also really cool. So yeah, like you said, seeing the contrast between how those two characters wield it was really important to see. I think that's why they did that. And I'm sure a lot if people who've been following the show know that how that's been working with them, and seeing that one little thing, how she was it so easily, like, ooh, okay, maybe there's something going on here. But after all that, Din's like, okay, thanks for saving me. I'm gonna go still head over to the mines and do that. And they're like, what the f are you doing? Like, okay. And so they go on that little journey. They get to the stairs with the water. Like you were saying earlier, Bo-Katan reads like the plaque that it's kind of like when you go to like a museum and like, here's where this person stood when this happened. And it's kind of like that whole deal. They're giving you this little spiel of what happened. Mando steps into the water and then boom, just sinks immediately. Bo-Katan goes in to save him, and then boom, like this is probably one of the biggest reveals in Star Wars probably in a long time. We see that the Mythosaur itself, the mythical Mythosaur of Mandalore, basically is still alive. Long considered extinct for a long time ago. It's living within the living waters of Mandalore, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, your cup is right there, Danny. You got you got the Mythosaur skull right there. That is the insignia of the Mandalore people, and we've always kind of like speculated what they looked like for real, and now we got a little tease of it. And I'm really hoping that we're gonna get like a massive episode where Din and Bo-Katan have to either like fight this thing, or if it brings all these Mandalorian people, like, hey, the Mythosaur is still out there. We could do something. We can almost rebuild Mandalore like that. Like we can basically start from the ground up the way that they established it within that little plaque, right? So yeah, massive kind of Easter egg reveal drop there, which is really cool and could hopefully set up a big future for Mandalorian.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And that kind of gets right into our predictions. You wanna get to some predictions?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, normally I would say, why don't you go first? But like that flowed so perfectly into kind of what I wanted to talk about in the predictions that I'm going to be selfish and I'm going to go first again. I apologize, but it just flows so perfectly. It's like you knew ahead of time and you set it right up. But I mean, that is kind of like what I'm wondering is what's going to happen later down the line in this season is how is a couple of things. How is Mando going to, go back and say like, hey, I was in the living waters type of thing. And how is he going to prove that? And I'm wondering if, in saying that and they don't believe him and stuff like that. And he says that the Mythosaur is alive. It's still there. Like you come and see it type of thing. Like if you don't believe me. So I'm wondering if that is kind of what gets that creed back
armor.
I'm wondering if that's what gets them back to to agree to come back to Mandalore, is to basically, go, I bet, like, I don't believe you.
And finding out it's not poisoned anymore, like, because they also have that data now through R5.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do. They have that. But yeah, I'm wondering if that's going to be a thing. And then I'm also wondering is like, because the whole thing with Bo-Katan is she's supposed to be, her family was royalty, her family ruled Mandalore and stuff like that.
Sister with the Duchess.
Right. So I'm wondering if that is going to end up being the ultimate civil fight of Mandalore, is going to be the Armor's people and Bo-Katan's people kind of fighting for who's supposed to actually, be in control, type of thing. Then if like we get like exactly kind of what you were saying, going back to what the plaque, like the insignia on what the plaque was talking about, how they tamed the creature that was in the living waters. I'm wondering if we're going to go back into that and we're going to have like a Mando and Bo-Katan having to try to figure out how they can tame this creature to show that, Bo-Katan really is like, should be the ruler of Mandalore, and this is what should be happening. So, like, I'm just very curious in what, like, how this is all going to come about. Like, obviously it's not just going to be like, oh, we believe you. Okay, let's all go back and just live happily ever after on Mandalore. Like, I know there's going to be some sort of like civil unrest, and they're going to have to like, there's going to be a clash between these two sides. And so I'm wondering if that's going to be like a big turning point. Is something's got to happen with the living water. Something's got to happen with the creature that's in the living water to move forward.
Something's going to happen that flips both of their ideologies on its head and makes them see that they're probably not supposed to be fighting each other anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious how that's going to go. But Rico, what are some of your predictions for the rest of the season?
So I don't know necessarily about the whole rest of the season, but I can probably take a guess on what maybe one particular episode could dive into. We always get like these little side adventure episodes with Mando at some point. And at the beginning of this episode, another cool little Easter egg, we got to be in Tatooine during the Bunta Eve Classic, which is of course the famous pod race from episode 1, like that same time, the Bunta Eve, which is really cool. But of course we meet Pelimoto again. She's become one of my favorite characters in the Mando verse. A character that I was like, I don't know if she fits in this world, but the more you kind of get to know her, the more you see how she fits around. Just our little droid crew, and the Jawas. She's like, she just fits in that little Tatooine world, and I like that. And we spend like significantly less time there than I thought we would. I thought when he went to Tatooine at the beginning, I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Here's our Tatooine episode, and we're gonna do that. But no, boom, right to Mandalore after that. But she name drops Boba Fett at one point, like, you hear take out Boba Fett. So I'm wondering like how Boba's rule is going as the daimyo during this time. So, but at the the post credit scenes of Book of Boba Fett, we get a shot of a Bacta tank, and Cobb Vanth, played by Timothy Olyphant, is kind of we learned that he survived the attack from Cad Bane in that show, and I'm wondering if Mando's going to go back to Tatooine, of course, and kind of reunite with Cobb. We'll see Cobb again, I think, and maybe we'll see him and Boba Fett interacting with each other. I think that would be pretty cool as well. Like, seeing those three together interacting as a team could be a pretty gnarly group to have, and have some really great action sequences as well. So I can never say no to more to Timothy Olyphant. Like, he's one of my favorite actors. Justified's one of my favorite shows I've seen ever, maybe. And yeah, so if you can have him bringing more of that kind of like Raylan Givens style to the Cobb Vanth character, I'm totally for it.
I'm right behind you. I would love to see like something happening on Tatooine that brings not only Mando back, but like as a common threat that like Mando has to help Boba, and now we have Cobb Vanth like back in action, back on the saddle. I guess
The Huts is still out there.
Yeah, and that's what she says at first. She didn't just bring up like, "Are you here to take out Boba?" It was, she asked about the Huts. Are the Huts back or something? So that was the first thing on her mind. So like, I'm wondering.
Yeah, there's still threats to address out there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episode 2? And I mean, what do you think's going to happen with Mandalore? How are we going to get, the Mandalorians back onto a now not poisoned Mandalore, basically? And who's going to be the ultimate ruler of Mandalore moving forward and somehow unite these different clans, I guess, of Mandalorians? And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.